Anyway, getting back to the story. We'd been thinking of coming back to England for a while because Jerry's importing business wasn't going very well. And then we thought, well, maybe we stand a better chance of building the business and succeeding in the business here in the UK. So we told our sponsor of our intentions to leave and prepared to pack up and fly back home. Now, he told us that we simply must delay our departure so that we could go to see Dexter and Bertie Yeager at a convention in Pittsburgh. Well, we said thank you very much, thanks for the invitation. And when he told us that it was going to cost us over $100 each, we said, sorry, but it's just out of the question. We're totally broke. We can't possibly afford that. But thanks ever so much for thinking about us. Because at that time we had a very sophisticated accounting system. We had 4 brown envelopes in one of the cupboards in the kitchen. One was for rent, one was for electricity, one was for food, and one was for savings. And the one for savings had always remained empty. So, but they didn't seem to hear this. They went on and on about this function and how much fun it was going to be and how we'd really enjoy it. And we really got fed up of hearing about this Dexter and Bertie Yeager. And looking back, I'm so glad they carried on promoting that function to us because they knew what we needed. And I'm thankful that they told us what we needed to hear rather than what we wanted to hear. They knew we could afford it. It's just that we didn't want to go enough. And once we'd given a high enough priority, we'd find a way to go. So I think they recognized that Jerry was a better bet than me, that he would probably give way if they kept on working on him. So they they left me alone and continued promoting it to Jerry. And finally, he showed signs of changing his mind. And that saying, the will that weakens first strengthens the other? Well, that was the case. He finally said, I think it was about 2 days before the weekend, okay, we both can't afford to go, one of us will go. He'll go. So I thought, great, I was annoyed, I suppose, but I was also relieved because I didn't want to spend 18 hours on a coach with a bunch of people I didn't know. I didn't relish that thought at all. So when the weekend arrived, I came home fully expecting to spend a quiet, dull weekend in the flat on my own. Well, that wasn't the case. Jerry met me at the door. He said, hurry up, you've got 5 minutes. I've paid for you too. We're both going. I was furious. I was really livid. The main concern was I didn't have anything to wear. That seemed to control my life at that stage. I've got nothing to wear. And as I ran around the flat gathering up a few things and packing them, I finally remembered to ask him where the money had come from. And he told me it had come from the rent envelope. As the landlord was in the business, he'd understand if we paid the rent a little late. Well, I just can't begin to tell you how much that function meant to us and what it did to us. But I do know that if we hadn't have gone, we wouldn't be in the business today. And we probably wouldn't even have started the business. Because we were part of several thousand people gathered in this huge auditorium, gathered to hear Dexter and Bertie Yeager speak. And we were seated way, way at the back. And I still have my notes from that weekend. They're headed Dexter and Bertie Yeager. I couldn't work out what her name was. And then I've got 2 lines of notes and then a whole page of doodles and scribbles. So while we didn't learn much on how to build the business that weekend, what we did realize is that the business works. We saw the success on stage, and we also saw that there were several thousand people out there who believed in this business as much as we wanted to believe in the business, and that was to prove to be so vital to us as we came back and started here. So we came back home, flew back home, and the first thing we did was to put all our savings into buying a VW Caravanette. This we believed we would need to live in because we were going to travel around the country showing the plan, and we'd also use it to carry the huge amount of products that we'd need to supply our group with. So you can see the terrific understanding we had of the business in the very, very beginning. We drew up a list of 6 prospects who we knew to be as broke as we were. They were bound to get in. They'd go direct and they'd make us diamond. No problem. So we set off in the van to change these 6 people's lives. And, they were scattered all over the country: Exeter, Leeds, Manchester, Kent. So we planned our route and off we went. And gradually we moved from one to the other. And we were absolutely astonished to discover that not one of our future directs understood the business, and not one of them wanted to become involved. So we, thought, oh, now what do we do? So we sort of went back to Bristol feeling somewhat dejected. And I suppose that could have been it. For a lot of people, that's it, isn't it? They have 2 meetings, they show a few people who don't see the business, and that's it. Well, I can honestly say we never, ever thought of giving up. Because when we saw this business, it gave us hope. Hope of better financial prospects, a hope of maybe building something for ourselves so that just maybe we wouldn't have to work for someone else for the next 45, 50 years. Hope of not having to settle for an average home, an average car, average holidays, an average existence. And just because a few people who we'd shown the business to didn't see the potential, that didn't mean to say that the business didn't work. And we weren't going to let them take that one chance that we had. We wouldn't let them take that from us. And you mustn't either. So, we considered our next move, and we decided to sell the van, as perhaps we wouldn't live in it. And we moved in with my sister. Unfortunately, she had a lot of friends, and they were always calling in. So what Jerry would do is, every time someone came to her flat, he would grab them, sit them down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, and show them the plan. And every now and then, we'd gather enough people together to merit a meeting. And then he'd use the board. Now, as most of these people were students, he'd wear his jeans and a jumper so that he could relate to them. So that's how we went about our first few meetings. And he'd show them the plan, and I'd do the product demonstration, and then we'd go down the pub for a spot of dream building with them. Yeah, it's very convenient because we lived on this estate right in the middle of Bristol, and in the middle of this estate is a pub. So it's 2 minutes from the front door. So off we go down the pub, and people used to get really excited. And Joey said, how would you like to maybe not work? And they said, yeah, great, down a pint, And then he'd carry on a bit more, and how would you like this? And, the people would go home really excited. The only problem was we found that when we went to do the follow-ups, they couldn't remember a thing about the plan. So that wasn't a good idea. And originally we decided to be directs in 4 months. So we decided that we were going to build the business on a full-time basis. And we told our American sponsor this, and he tried to impress on us that this business is different. That it's a business you start with no risk on a part-time basis. And that over a period of time you build up a steady income, which in time can replace a job income if you wish, but it certainly isn't instant money. Well, we chose to ignore this piece of advice. We were different. We were going to blaze a trail, go direct in 4 months, so we didn't need jobs. And however, 4 months later, when we were at the 9% level and we weren't at the direct level, what we had been told sunk in. And we realized that the 9% income of a 9% business couldn't support us, so we thought, well, we better go and get some jobs. So Jerry got a job as a van driver, and I went out and got a job as a working in an office, clerical work. Now, because we'd messed up so much and we'd lived for 4 months with no income coming in, we were not only broke at this stage, we were also in debt, heavily in debt, and we were under a lot of financial pressure. However, we knew it was essential that we find a way to buy the books and tapes, because at that time they were our lifeline. We had no upline nearby. We had no local success to point to that we knew of. We had no training sessions, no open meetings, no seminars and rallies, nothing. So we needed those books and tapes. We needed them to maintain our excitement, maintain our belief in the business, and also to build belief in ourselves. And because Jerry was driving and on the road all day, he was listening to tape after tape after tape, and he was always excited. And he built a level of positive expectation, and he programmed me to do the same, and he programmed both of our minds for direct. Now, we didn't go direct in 4 months, as I said. Instead, we reached the 12% level, and we stuck at the 12% level for what seemed ages. And because I was doing the paperwork, I was very conscious of the PV. And every month I'd add up the PV, and it seemed to hover around the 600 mark. And I used to complain to Jerry, and I used to say to him, look, we're supposed to move up a level each month, not check each one out for 6 months to see if we like it. That was a great support, great support. You know, we wanted to be direct so much, so badly. We just were determined to be direct. And nothing seemed to be happening. And rather than pull together and work as a team, we'd take it out on each other. And we look at each other's faults and concentrate on each other's mistakes. And many a time we'd be going along to a meeting, and we'd be, having a row in the car and tearing into each other and really dragging each other down. But we knew we had to be positive. So by the time we arrived at the meeting, we'd stand on the door, and the host would open the door, and there would be sweetness and smiles. You know, we had a lot of mental growth. We had a lot of growing to do, and we had to realize that the business grows when you work as a team, and we had to learn to stop pulling in opposite directions and start pulling together. Well, in our ninth month of the business, Jerry's decided this was it. You know, we'd had enough, and we were going direct. Now, we had moved up to the 15% level the month before, but he decided to miss out 18% and that it was time we went direct. And he sat down and looked at a drawing of the group and figured that if he went out and helped so many people reach their levels, then we could be direct. So I thought, great, fine. So the first order of the month came in, and I sat down to work it out, total it up, and the PV was a grand 50 PV. So I said, look at this. Look at this. You know, I may be slow, my maths is poor, but 4 times 50 is not 2,500. Well, he chose to ignore me. You know, he just looked at me with a blank look on his face because he was, he'd been reading the books and he had such a positive attitude, and he just quoted to me, what Dexter said. Dexter says, when your dream is big enough, the facts don't count. I thought, fine, He was mad. Anyway, he just went out there night after night, showing the plan and sharing his excitement. And as the weeks went by, the orders got bigger, they got better. And the last order, when I sat down to work it out, it was larger than all the others put together. And by the 30th of the month, we were new Silver Directs. And we moved on to qualify as direct distributors 3 months later, and we just assumed we'd sail on to Pearl. And then we realized something was wrong. Something was definitely wrong, because Jerry was doing all the work. When he was with the group, he'd pump them up and they'd get all excited and they'd say, yes, order my pin, we're going direct next month, isn't it great? And then when he wasn't with them, they'd go right back down again. And we found that we didn't have one person in our group who wanted the business half as much as we did. They just weren't serious about the business. And we didn't have a group of business people, we had a nursery school. And we were doing everything for them. We'd built the business for them rather than with them. We'd pick them up and take them to meetings. We'd lend them books and tapes because they couldn't afford to buy them. We couldn't afford to lend them, but that was irrelevant. We'd lend them the books and tapes. We'd deliver products for them. We'd do absolutely everything. And it's difficult to build the business like that, and it's also unnecessary. It's not the way the business is built. And we realized something had to change. And finally we understood that we were looking for people who were willing to match our commitment, who were looking for more. Not only were they looking for more, they were willing to work for it. They were willing to learn, and that they were self-motivated. And when our posture changed from one of selling the business to people and forcing success on people to one of simply sharing the business opportunity with others and working with the ambitious ones, that's when we began to attract people like yourselves to the business, and that's when our business began to really move on. And one of the exciting things to me about this business is that you never know who you're going to meet tomorrow. If you just keep on, you never know what's going to happen next week. And we always kept that in mind, because we knew that there were people out there who would see the potential and the magic in this business. It's just that we had to keep our attitude right, and we had to be consistent and persistent and just go out there and show the plan. One of the principles that we've built our business by is that you build your business first, and then you build your home. And as we began to make money from the business, we invested it back into the business, not only in terms of books and tapes, but also in terms of going to see the diamonds. Now, at that stage, as I mentioned, we didn't have any functions over here, but we knew in order to succeed that we had to associate and learn from successful people as often as we could. So we invested in going to Ireland and to France and to Germany and to the States to attend the major functions and to be with the diamonds. And this principle of delayed gratification, giving up in the short term for long-term benefit, was not always an easy one for me to learn. Because you see, our families are in Jersey, as some of you probably know, and for the first 2 years in the business, we didn't go to see our families, we went to see the diamonds instead. And our families didn't understand why, and in the beginning I didn't. I used to think Jerry was a really mean monster for keeping me away from my family. I couldn't understand it. And at one stage it was particularly tough for me, because my younger sister had her first baby, and for her first year I didn't get to see her. And I know some of you are probably sitting there and thinking, well, I'm just not prepared to pay that price. No business is worth that. People are worth more than any amount of money in any business. And our families told us that, and I thought that too. But you have to understand that from following that policy, the situation has changed now. Because I see my niece, and we see all our families every 4 weeks. Every month we're in Jersey. And yes, we have business over there, we have directs over there, but whether we had business there or not, we could be there every month to see them. And I know if we hadn't have built the business, that wouldn't be the case. One, I would have to work, so I wouldn't have the freedom of time to be over there that often. But also, we definitely wouldn't be able to afford to go maybe once, maybe twice a year. And it really hit home the last time I was there. The last time I was there, I bumped into one of those 6 people we showed the business to in the beginning, who didn't see it, who didn't get involved. Do you know, they hadn't been to Jersey for 2 years, and the only reason he was there with his wife and 2 children was because his parents had paid the airline tickets and paid for them to go. They couldn't have afforded to go.